Welcome everyone to our Lively You Virtual Learning Academy program. Today's featured program is Balancing Your Expenses Now Can Help You Reach Your Financial Goals. I'd like to welcome to present this topic, Chad Plantz from Edward Jones.
All right. Well, Danielle, thank you very much for once again having us out to talk about financial topics here. So, as you had mentioned, we're going to discuss a little bit about spending and saving strategies and even debt. Once again, my name is Chad Plantz. I'm with Edward Jones here in Bowling Green. We're actually located at 519 West Wooster Street, which is near downtown. Really the reason that we do this every month is to provide, obviously, financial advice and not necessarily advice, but just financial topics to the public to provide just additional information. And today's goal is to give you some new ways to think about your money. And I'll share some topics and tips with you on ways that you can help to make your money go further and achieve your financial goals. We'll talk about understanding your personal budget and different ways to put every dollar that you earn to work, and for you to find ways to strengthen your credit while reducing risk as well. So talking about your finances can many times be difficult for some people. A lot of times you hear the word budget and you cringe, right? But by the end of this presentation, you will have the tools you need to develop a strategy, and you can put it into place to help you balance spending and saving, even borrowing needs to achieve what matters most to you. So let's start by talking about a 5-step process that we use here to help clients and develop a strategy to help them achieve their long-term and sometimes even short-term goals. So what you're seeing here, your goals and the goals of the person that you may be sitting with or that you may be talking with can tend to be different, right? But there's a consistent process that I use to help start the financial conversation, and this can help you define your long-term financial goals and to build a strategy. So to have a clear outlook on your future, the first step is always to evaluate where you are today, and only then can you really begin to set clear and measurable goals for where you'd like to be in the future. Now, when your goals are determined, you need to evaluate if they're realistic, right? So this determination is based on the amount of time you have to invest and the investments you're comfortable with. So these are also known as your time horizon and your investment suitability. Now, as a trusted financial advisor, I can help you decide which solutions and strategies can help you work toward your goals. So hopefully you have somebody like that in your circle that you can partner with. Knowing more about the solutions and strategies available to you can help you make more informed decisions about where your money is going and what it's doing for you. So once you've set your strategy, you can stay on track by periodically evaluating where you are, whether you've reached your goals already or what new goals you'd like to achieve. So is your current strategy working for you, or are there adjustments that need to be made along the way? So let's first start off with the first step of the process, right? Ask yourself, well, where am I today? So consider your investments, your cash savings, your debt and income. Often our perception of how we spend money and the actual reality of how we spend money can be oftentimes far apart, right? Budgeting helps you get a handle on what you spend each month and what income you have to cover those expenses and then save for the future. So many people are surprised at how much money they actually spend each month. I recommend that you track your expenses for 1 or 2 months just to see how close you come to the amount you estimated. It will then be easier to start making specific adjustments if necessary. So as far as budgeting goes, right, so to help you get a handle on your budget, if you don't already have a written budget somewhere, and that's one of the most important things, a written budget, right? If it's not written out, chances are you're just on a spending spree. So a written budget, and we here at Edward Jones have actually created a monthly budget worksheet, and I will pull that up. That's something that we can definitely send out to you if you don't already have a written budget in place. Definitely guidelines or kind of of a starting point for understanding different things. By completing this type of worksheet, you can actually get an overall snapshot of your current finances. As you update the information, you'll have an opportunity to think about all the money that's coming into the household, whether or not that's salary or other forms of income. It can also give you a picture of all the money that's going out, right, and how it's being spent. So hopefully you're seeing that on your screen now, just our monthly budget worksheet. So once again, you can reach out to Danielle or myself, once again, Chad Plantz with Edward Jones, and we can get you this information if that's something that you're interested in filling out. Okay. All right. So when you start thinking about goals, try to be as specific as possible. So this will help you, determine if your goals are long-term, short-term, or more immediate. So try to categorize them into the goals you'd like to accomplish, let's say in the next 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, or even 10 years and beyond, right? So a more immediate goal would be to ensure you constantly have cash to address everyday spending, right? Emergency savings. So a short-term goal would be to build a fund for unexpected expenses and emergencies, or to save for a specific goal, such as a vacation at the end of the year, right? In 5 years, you may be thinking about saving for your children's education or paying off student debt or even car loans, right? Now, in 10 years, you may be looking to purchase a different home, or you may have a dream project that you've been hoping to take on. Further out, you may be thinking about retirement or paying off your mortgage, right? So once again, you need to think of the different options that are the different time horizons. Well, when you look at all your goals, you may realize that it's going to take a lot of preparing to save the money required to meet them. So there may even be some competing goals to keep in mind, right? Things that you're going to have to do at the same time. So having a strategy that points toward your goals can really help you stay focused on what you want to achieve. So your financial advisor can help you prioritize and identify strategies to pursue your goals. So she or he can actually, also help out, with the third step in the process, and that's determining, if you are on track to, or if your goals are realistic, and then what adjustments will need to be made if you're not on track to meet those goals. So to help add some perspective around this, let's take a deeper look at how money is used. Specifically, I'd like to share 4 uses of cash and then some ideas behind debt and credit, right? Hopefully this information will not only leave you with some good insights about spending and borrowing and saving, but also help you determine if the financial goals that you have in your sights are realistic and achievable at this point. All right, so let's start with those 4 uses of cash, right? Cash has benefits and trade-offs. It provides for your current spending needs. It can serve as a cushion for the unexpected. When we talk about cash here, we're actually talking about the literal currency, right, as well as the currency equivalents, such as certificates of deposits or CDs, and short-term savings vehicles like checking and savings accounts. So when it comes to your longer-term goals, it's important to understand that cash generally earns a very low rate of interest, right? So this can make it a poor way to achieve your long-term investment goals. Now, let's outline 4 uses of cash using the acronym USES, right? Uses. Though we're not necessarily going to go in that order, so hopefully that doesn't throw you off, but those are the letters we're going to go through here. So let's start with E, everyday spending. The reason we start with this one is that it is the first item that needs to be addressed within your budget, right? Specifically with everyday spending, we're talking about cash used to provide for the lifestyle you want to live. So this includes day-to-day spending, such as groceries and utilities, entertainment, making sure you're paying your mortgage and any other debt payments that you might have. This cash usually is held in a checking or cash management account and should be easily accessible and principal protected. Now, principal protection is available at most checking accounts via FDIC insurance protection, which is common through pretty much all banks. So we know it's important to have cash available for everyday spending needs, as well as the inevitable rainy day fund, right? But outside of the budget exercise we just discussed, it's likely that many of us have never taken the time to understand how much we actually need. We do run into that a lot about, how much money do we, need in that rainy day fund. So a quick tip. Many of you may already be taking advantage of this tip, but if not, it can help you automate your spending and stay on time with regular payments. And that's auto pay bills, right? Some utilities and other billers now offer the opportunity to use automatic bill pay functions, in which your regular bill amount is automatically deducted from your account, or can even be charged to a credit card and possibly earn rewards if you have that with your card. Now, some even offer a discount for using this service, right? Auto pay, you get a percentage off of your bill, but others actually charge a fee. So, using this option can help you, pay your bills on time, but you'll want to take a look deeper into what are the actual benefits in addition to making sure that we're paying on time. So it's a good idea to have some extra money since it's being pulled out of your account automatically each month. It's good to have some extra money above in your normal billing amounts in the account, just to make sure none of your payments bounce, right? Bouncing a check, similar situation. Much like a check, if there is a shortfall in funds with an automatic bill, you may be subject to overdraft fees or late payments. And obviously, not only does that affect your dollar amount, but that also could affect your credit score as well. So definitely something to consider. And now the convenience of automatic payments and credit and debit card use can result in fees and penalties if not consistently monitored. So signing up for an online account is one way to help monitor your balance and expenses to ensure you don't spend more than the amount you have in the account. So back to how much is too much? Well, it's a bit of an oxymoron here, right? Having too much of your savings sitting in cash can actually be an issue, right? That's especially true when you're investing for long-term goals such as retirement. So in fact, your cash strategy can be a key factor in your long-term financial success. So as you progress through your financial life, this is an important thing to keep in mind to find out how much is enough. Well, let's go back to that word that made some of us cringe earlier, right? The budget. So budgets don't have to be scary, right? In fact, they can help you see where you spend your cash, which could help with identifying areas where you could reduce your spending, or figure out how much you may have available to invest for long-term goals. So remember, each dollar you don't spend on bills or other expenses can be put to work one way or another in your strategy for your future goals. There we go. All right, so the next one here is, let's move to the U, right, for uses. So the U is unexpected expenses and emergencies. So it's really not a matter of if, but more of a matter of when you'll need to deal with the unexpected, right? Murphy's Law, right? When it rains, it pours. So this is about having a cash reserve in case events such as a job loss or a home repair or an unplanned medical expenses, or once again, when it rains, it pours, maybe all of the above, right? This cash should be held in easily accessible principal protected accounts, whether or not that's a savings account, a money market, or even short-term CDs may be appropriate here. These tend to pay interest on your balances, so the money you only use on occasion is still working for you, right? We don't want to necessarily put it in a coffee can in the backyard. So establishing an emergency fund can help prevent the need for the need to sell long-term investments or invade your retirement accounts to meet for a short-term cash need. This can especially be valuable during a short-term market decline. So when these investments may be down in value, the last thing we want to be doing is, selling an investment, for pennies on the dollar. So you may be better prepared to stick to your long-term investment strategy in that scenario, knowing you have cash set aside should the unexpected occur. So how much do you need, right? Back to the original question. Well, I recommend typically 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And I'd recommend having access to potentially a line of credit if possible as well, as a supplemental way to meet this type of need just in case. To put it in perspective, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median length of unemployment, and this is back from 2015, was about 3 months. So there's always a risk of unexpected expenses such as an unplanned auto repair or even medical expenses. But remember, this recommendation is just a guideline. You may need more or less than that 3 to 6 months, depending on the factors such as your job security. Now, if you're already in retirement and have guaranteed sources of income such as Social Security and pensions, that may change the goal in terms of how much do we need in our rainy day fund in terms of number of months in terms of income. So the next portion here is another tip here. So to build your reserves. So as a rule of thumb, I recommend keeping 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash to provide for ongoing spending. This assumes you are receiving a paycheck, and once again, that you're not necessarily in retirement already. If you are, that will change things a little bit. But the idea is that, this assumes you're receiving a paycheck and the reserves are being refreshed by the next paycheck. So anything above and beyond your living expenses and your cash for unexpected events and emergencies, they can be directed into your investment accounts. All right, so we move to S. This is the first of the S's, and it stands for specific short-term savings goals. So this is cash earmarked for a specific purchase or goal in the next year or two. It may be for replacement of a vehicle or even a vacation or a wedding. Again, we recommend this money be held in a savings account, money market account, or even a short-term CD. So while this cash could be mixed in with your everyday cash, it is often separated at least mentally so you know what is targeted for the specific goal. So some people even use dedicated accounts for each goal. While potentially tedious, maintaining separate accounts for different needs, this can help you track progress towards your goal and ensure funds earmarked for one purpose are not being used for something else. The amount needed is ultimately based, on what your specific savings goal and what the specific goal is, right? So it's best if you work with your financial advisor to estimate the amount you'll need as well as the appropriate solution for the specific goal. So separating savings and checking. So also separating your money into separate checking and savings accounts is a strategy that many find helpful in terms of managing your money. Once again, this can help you have greater visibility when it comes to how your money is being used. The checking account can be used to, consolidate your incoming income sources, so your salary and interest and dividends and tax refunds, but also, Social Security, pensions, those types of things, checking account. So how many, ultimately, how many of us actually use direct deposit, right? I think that's a large number of people these days with technology, right? This is a good way to automate the process. Often your place of employment or your financial institution offers this, right? The same checking account can be used to pay bills such as your credit card or mortgage or insurance, and it can cover the day-to-day transactions such as the gas and groceries. So you can use the savings account as a place to keep your reserves and your emergency fund, which we'll discuss in a few moments. This way, you'll know how much money you had to pay the bills and spend toward day-to-day expenses, checking, and so on, versus what you're saving, the just in case. And now let's talk about the final S in the 4 uses of cash, and that's sources of investment. So cash can play a role as part of a well-diversified investment portfolio. In fact, cash can actually be viewed as a distinct asset class as well, or a type of investment within the fixed income bucket, right? So cash tends to behave differently from other asset classes, such as stocks and bonds. So it can be valuable as a diversification tool. Now, let's break this down into 2 different types of cash allocations. So we have strategic cash allocations and temporary cash allocations. So the temporary allocations of cash for future investment. So a strategic cash allocation is, this refers to any holdings of cash as an asset class in order to diversify your investments. So based on our outlook for interest rates, the markets and the economy, we would typically recommend somewhere between 0 and 5% of your fixed income allocation actually be in cash, which would most likely be about 2 to 3% of your overall investment portfolio. Now, if you are not yet retired, this recommendation may be adjusted as our long-term outlook changes. So, but a temporary allocation to cash targeted for future investment. So you may have cash that has recently deposited into an investment account or from an investment that has matured, such as a CD or a bond, that you are targeting for reinvestment. So you may wonder, well, when is the right time to invest that money, right? Well, in our view, the best time to invest is when you have the money available. One way to take timing or as well as emotions out of investing is through dollar cost averaging. So dollar cost averaging is actually a strategy designed to help you purchase more shares when the price is low and fewer shares when the prices rise. It can help smooth out the price you pay for your investments, averaging out the cost, right? As well as help maintain discipline in your investing decisions. Cash has many uses, whether it's providing for unexpected events, a short-term savings goal, your everyday expenses, or even a source of investment, right? By ensuring you have each of these areas covered, you can better focus on your long-term goals, including preparing for retirement and paying for education. So schedule some time now with me or to review your uses of cash. Now, what I'm going to want to do is actually kind of switch gears here a little bit, and that's discussing credit and debt, right? So obviously, credit is a very powerful tool. Responsible credit actually takes an understanding of budgeting and diligent monitoring. For many of us, debt can be a stumbling block on our way to our financial goals. So remember, each dollar that isn't spent towards bills or debt and interest, right, can be put to work for you. So we're going to talk about a couple different things in regards to debt, and not only debt, but smart spending and our actual spending when it comes to debt. So next here is some debt is necessary, or it can potentially be necessary part of your financial picture. So believe it or not, you may have heard this before, there's good debt and there's bad debt. And I know there's many people with different strategies or thought processes on this. Whether or not you believe in taking on debt or not, think of it as in terms of necessary versus excess debt. So in education, your home, car, many of those things, may not be possible for most people without incurring some sort of debt. So excess credit card debt, which can be identified as a situation where you're making only minimum payments, transferring balances to new cards several times a year, or taking on new cards, that can get you into a lot of trouble, right? To understand a strategy for getting out of debt, especially credit card debt, you must first understand how credit works and have a budget in place, right? If we're fighting so hard to get out of debt, but we don't understand how we're going to stay out of debt with a budget, then what are we fighting towards here, right? So we will move on to the next portion here. So the good old credit score, right? Well, as I mentioned earlier, some debt is necessary, and your credit profile will determine what types of loans you can qualify for, as well as how expensive it will be for you to borrow, right? So remember, the better your credit history, the more options you will have if you need to borrow money, and the lower the cost. So there are two parts to your credit picture, right? Your credit score and your credit report. Generally, creditors use what is referred to as a Fico score, which is your credit score, to gauge creditworthiness of a borrower. So applicants with a higher FICO score may be offered higher credit limit amounts and lower interest rates. Now, credit scores typically range from 300 to 850, and generally a score near or above 740 may be required to get the best rates available from lending institutions. Though this number changes, the different institutions may use different criteria when it comes to determining the rates offered. Now, consumers with a score below 620 may be regarded as a high risk, right? Lenders may believe these consumers will have difficulty paying back a loan, or they may have had financial trouble in the past, or have even taken out a lot of new credit. Therefore, they may pay higher rates or be denied credit altogether. So your FICO score, it's a 3-digit number calculated based on a number of factors. A few of the most heavily weighted factors are what you see here on the screen. Your history of on-time payments, your credit utilization, right? How much revolving credit do you have? Your length of credit history, right? Are you somebody that doesn't have any credit history? Have you never had debt before, right? Recent searches for credit, right? Are you going everywhere in town to try and buy a new car and they're pulling your credit everywhere? How many searches have we had recently? And then the types of credit that you actually use. So your exact credit score can be obtained. You can definitely jump on, there's probably multiple sites now, but you can always go to www.myfico.com, and it's available there for free. So one of the biggest things you can do to manage your credit score is to monitor your credit report. So by law, you're entitled to one free credit report per year from each credit bureau. So this will help you understand what banks and other institutions are looking at when evaluating your credit history. Now, your credit report is maintained by 3 companies, as we had discussed. So it's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, these companies collect and collate information about you from a variety of sources, including creditors, lenders, utilities, debt collection agencies, and the court's public records. Often creditors only report to 1 or 2 bureaus, and different lenders report to different bureaus as well. So therefore, it makes sense to request your report from each bureau to make sure there's no discrepancies. So I recommend you request your report from the 3 credit bureaus on a staggered basis, not all at once. For example, request one in January and one in May, and then the third one maybe in the fall, in September, right? So this way you're requesting 3 times a year instead of just every 12 months. Again, you are entitled to 1 free credit report per year from each credit bureau. So just please note that not all lenders report to all 3 bureaus, so your report from each bureau may differ slightly. In addition to maintaining a good credit score, it's important to keep aware of your credit picture to help protect against fraudulent activity as well, right? You see more and more of this anymore, where fraud's occurring and credit lines are being opened in other people's names. So you've likely read in the headlines about the rise of credit fraud in recent years, and I recommend that you carefully monitor your credit report for an unfamiliar account, right? Or if you see one that doesn't look right, contact the institution and determine what actions need to be taken. There are also tips for action on the sites that you go to for Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So, all right. So debt consolidation and payoff strategies. So let's discuss some strategies to consider with regard to debt consolidation and paying down debt. So this is a hypothetical of somebody that may have 5 separate credit cards, and you can see the credit cards here are actually listed, the amount owed on each card, the interest rate that's being charged on those balances, and then the minimum payment that you see there. So keep in mind, in this scenario here, as they're listed interest rate high to low, right? Credit card 5 has the lowest rate of 18%. Credit card 1 has the highest of 21%. Now, what I would typically recommend is, if you are working on getting out of debt, paying off credit card debts, that you list your debts in terms of a balance lowest to highest, right? So credit card 1 should technically be your lowest balance. Credit card 5 should be your highest balance, regardless of interest rate. And the reason we do this is because we want to get you in a situation where you're paying off the credit card balances as quickly as possible. So in this scenario, obviously, if you have the 5 credit cards that you see here on the screen, well, you're required to make a minimum payment. In this scenario, you can see that if somebody was paying a minimum payment on all 5 of these credit cards, that the $9,500 is the balance due, and that they need to pay $250 a month towards that. Now, many folks will pay those minimum payments and then eventually never get out of debt, right? They'll continue to make those payments forever, and the interest rates are just going to continue to build, or the interest charges are going to continue to build. So it'll be practically forever before you actually pay off the cards if you do that. Now, with the minimum payment, if you make the minimum payment on every single one and you have the ability to put extra money towards any of these cards, the card that you want to put it towards is the one with the lowest balance. So in this scenario, credit card 1, $25 monthly payment minimum, $750 balance, that's the card that you would want to put the extra payment towards. The idea is as fast as we can get that first card with the lowest balance paid off, not only does that allow you to take, let's say you were paying an extra $50 a month. Now, not only do you have that $50 extra that you've been paying each month to apply to the next lowest balance card, but you also have the extra $25 of minimum payments. So now you have $75 per month on top of the minimum payment that you've already been paying of $75 a month for credit card 2. So once card 1's paid off, now we're able to put $75 for the minimum payment plus the $75 from the first card on this. So now we're paying $150 towards paying off this next balance. Of course, in this scenario, I would have put card 3 in card 2 spot, but it kind of gives you the idea. Many people may have heard of this strategy. It's been referred to as snowball or debt stacking. But the idea is as you continue to snowball those minimum payments and any excess, it starts to pay off the debt quicker. So just another strategy for paying off credit card debt. Once again, ultimately, that strategy is a good strategy if the idea is we have a budget in place to be able to make sure that we're not going to get back into debt. Ultimately, how nice would it be to be able to allocate that $250 every single month, not to paying off $9,500 in credit card debt, right, which will take many, many, many years to pay off, when we could be putting that $250 into an investment for the next 10 to 20 years, right, and ultimately having some growth on that can help us reach one of our goals. So I know that's a lot of information here today, just about not only the budget, right, getting a budget in place and a written budget in place, but also the ideas behind debt and credit cards, right, and the good sources of debt versus the bad. So I will open this up at this point back to Danielle to see if there's any questions, but once again, if there's anything you need from me, Chad Plantz here with Edward Jones.
Thank you, Chad. We're going to go ahead and we'll stop our recording.